Howdy, howdy, everyone. Welcome to the I Read It for the Plot podcast. We've got a monstrously good episode for you today, but before we begin, if you could like, comment on, share this podcast, hit that little bell to get notifications for new episodes, it would help so much. And if you have any questions or book recommendations, please shoot us an email at ireaditfortheplotcast@gmail.com or come join our Discord where we can have fun discussions about tropes, writing, reading playlist recommendations, and more. We're going to have a really fun book talk today with a very special guest. That being said, grab a cup, grab a blanket, and let's talk books. Chapter 9, Rated M for Monster. Today we're going to be talking about how far writers can take their worlds, their love interest, and how much the readers can actually handle. Is there such thing as too hot or too weird? Today we're going to find out with my very special guest, Brittany Buffam. How you doing, Brittany?
I'm doing well, thanks.
All right, so you and I have had some pretty interesting discussions in our Instagram DMs about this particular subject.
Yes.
You read something very recently that you were going on a tangent about. Was this one of those, the subject of this, or was it something different?
No, Heartless Hunter. It isn't. It wouldn't really fit into the monster category because it was about like a witch versus a witch hunter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I know we've exchanged videos about Morning Glory Milking Farm, which is legitimately one of my favorite love stories. Like, I know the premise is so wild and the like spicy parts is so wild, but at its core, it is a beautiful love story. And I will 100% recommend it to anybody.
All I see when I see that book is, all I get in my head is the story of how the Minotaur was created. The Greek myth behind that. So
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Greek mythology, they had a lot of weird stuff. I mean, the gods transformed into animals. They were half men, half animal creatures, all over the place in Greek mythology. I mean, look at the centaurs.
Right.
Yeesh.
I've read quite a few things at this point that take their inspiration from Greek mythology. For instance, I've actually read two in a series that is very directly kind of based on Greek mythology, and they're both Waichus. Like I know I've mentioned, I really particularly enjoy Waichus books because of the polyamorous representation.
There you go.
And so this one particular, so the series is sort of tied together by gargoyles that have this kind of, they live in Greece and they're monster hunters. And so they have a very sort of black and white view of like monsters. And so the first book that I read was actually focused on Medusa, and basically these gargoyles, this like clan of three gargoyles, like group, I guess, not clan, but like this group of three gargoyles, or was it four? No, four gargoyles. Yeah, four had to like hunt her down, collect her to get her to do two tasks that they needed because the gargoyles were like dying out, and they needed these two things that only Medusa would be able to help them do, and then they needed her to do one other thing, and their plan was to like kill her afterwards.
Why does everyone want to kill Medusa? Come on, the poor woman just wanted to be left alone.
Yes, and so when they find her, it's basically like modern day. Although there's some like weird dimension hopping sort of things where like the gargoyle clan is sort of in a separate dimension, like lives in a separate dimension from the modern world. Anyway, they go and find her and they essentially like kidnap her basically. But then, over the process of doing these different tasks, they're into each other, and there's definitely plenty of spicy moments. And what's kind of cool is how a twist on the mythology is sort of brought into it. For example, in this world, instead of Perseus being the one to kill her, Perseus was her first lover, actually, and basically created sunglasses for her so that he could go out into the world.
Oh God, no! Now you just got me imagining the Uma Thurman as Medusa version.
Oh really?
Yeah, from what was it called? Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the first movie.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen that. Okay.
What? Girl!
I guess I need to see that. Yeah.
You do! It's actually really entertaining. I haven't seen the TV show yet, but the movie was really entertaining. But anyways, continue on with the story.
Yeah, it's so... Anyway, it's just interesting. I do enjoy, little twists. I was a Greek mythology kid. I was obsessed with Greek mythology. So, I enjoy little twists. There are certain limits that I have that I think I told you. For instance, I cannot do anything that romanticizes Persephone's and Hades' relationship. That's just a hard
Probably don't read A Touch of Darkness then.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
That one is... I would not recommend that. I love Caitlin, but I would not recommend it because it's so terribly written. It's just bad.
Oh, God. And I also... I never read that, but I read something else by the same author, King of Battle and Blood, and I DNF'd it. I couldn't do it. It was not good. Although I wouldn't say it was about the writing for me. It was about the characters, and I just hated the main character. He was very inconsistent. We were being told that he was sort of had this righteousness and these convictions, but then he threw the convictions out the window the moment the main love interest, who was her enemy, really looked at her, and I was just, come on, girl, come on, But anyway, oh God, yeah, man, it's so easy to go off on tangents.
No, that's fun. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So, but back to the Medusa thing. Yeah. So that happened with Perseus, and then also, I mean, it was consistent in that he was basically essayed by Poseidon on the floor of Athena's temple, and Athena cursed her. And then
not one of her finer moments.
Yeah, and so she ends up meeting Athena again, and Athena basically admits that the gods have been behind the times and stuff, and now there's been so many it's been so many years, there's different standards or whatever, basically saying that
she's changed, she's evolved.
I guess kind of just it's sort of without mentioning it, it's sort of referencing just the new standards and kind of Me Too and stuff, but not obviously not saying anything about it. But yeah, that was kind of anyways. So he gives her something, but he doesn't actually take the curse away. He just gives her something else. But yeah, and so basically in the process of doing all these tasks, he and these 4 gargoyles essentially fall in love, and then he gets taken back to the clan where he does the final task for them, and the clan is super black and white. They've been monster hunting for so many centuries. In their mind, just by being a monster, you're automatically evil, and
that kind of conditioning.
Yeah, And so, but they obviously saw with kind of Medusa, like it sort of shook their conviction a little bit with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of feeds into the second book, where they send off this other group of like 3 or 4 gargoyles to go after Keto, who is like the mother of all sea monsters.
Okay.
And so I read that one as well. And I think there are a couple others that I just haven't read because I don't know, those kind of series, they're like, they may be different characters, but they kind of follow the same
Plotline?
pattern. Yeah, and so I'm kind of like, 1 or 2 books with that plotline's fine, but I'm not particularly interested in reading like more than
Yeah.
that.
Like Ice Planet Barbarians, how it's just each individual love story, but it's like same thing, but written over and over and over again with just different characters.
What's so wild to me about that is that so before that became like a big hit, I had already read like multiple alien romances.
Mm-hmm.
And so in comparison, like Ice Planet Barbarians is so mediocre that I can really tell that the reason it's popular is because all these people on TikTok have never read any other alien romance. But I will 100% say that like alien romances in general are pretty cookie cutter.
Would you say they're out of this world?
Not really, actually. I mean, there's really only 2 alien romances that I can think of that like stand out in my mind as being like particularly interesting. Otherwise, they tend to follow the same like format.
What do you think the personal appeal is to that? To alien romance? I mean, the first alien romance I can imagine is, or romanticizing an alien of sorts, is Spock from Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
But that's because Leonard Nimoy was very handsome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, Leonard, Spock being like very smart and logical. Like, I know to me the like logical part appealed because I'm very logical thinking, and so that was definitely the appeal for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's always hard to know what other people, why they enjoy what they enjoy. I know for me, something that is why I really like alien romances, I really like monster romances, is because I'm a huge sucker for the trope of, they initially thought that they wouldn't match because, they look different on the outside, but then once they get to know each other, they're actually, they actually have lots in common, and, they can fall in love. Like I'm a sucker for that type of that storyline. Like I think I mentioned to you the book Radiance by Grace Draven.
I think so.
Yes, it's, oh my god, it's so cute. It's definitely a very, also if you want like a fantasy romance that is very cozy, like it doesn't have high stakes, doesn't have high like external conflict or anything. This is great for that because it's very character driven. It's very driven by the relationship, the building relationship. It just has this fantasy backdrop. But, and so the main character is, and I'm trying to remember her name. It's sort of a, different kind of fantasy name. But she is a human as far as we can understand. She's a human. And Brittany, who is the love interest, he's like another humanoid species, but does look very different. And this is sort of like fantasy, but like 1800s feudalism kind of thing. Like there's these two kingdoms, and they're both royals, but they're like far enough away from they're like 20th in line for the throne or whatever. So, they're basically, they both know that what they're going to be used for essentially is to like make political alliances through marriage. And that's what happens. They're married. They have an arranged marriage for the purposes of these kingdoms forming an alliance. But because they both know that this is coming, they both go into it with a very like open-minded kind of perspective of they're going to try and make the best of it. They're going to try and like be at least friends with their spouse kind of thing. But it's so cute because they meet each other and they both acknowledge that because they're different, they look so different and their different cultures have like such different beauty standards. They basically, they admit that they find each other hideous. And it becomes like an inside joke kind of thing between them. Like they'll.
Oh, please tell me it starts a whole banter.
Oh, it does. It does. It 100% does. And what makes it so much better is that like because they start out with this like sort of friendliness, and then they build like a friendship, and then they fall in love, and through the whole process they start to actually find each other attractive.
Aww.
Because they're love, and it makes it so much better. Like, I love it so much. It's such a sweet book.
I love that.
No, the funny thing about that is, now I will put a little just warning, is if you read that book and you love it and you see that there is a sequel, and actually at the end of that book there's like an epilogue that basically goes into the sequel, do not go into the sequel expecting the same thing. It is a completely different tone. It's whereas the first one was very based on the characters and the relationship, the second one brings in external conflict that is like very dark. Like it starts off with like a mass murder, basically. Oh. Yeah. It's very intense. And so if you're okay with that, it is kind of neat to read, because you obviously have this couple together and you kind of get to see how they as a couple like handle conflict. And there's like some political intrigue and everything. And so it's neat, but yeah, I always, when I'm telling people about how great Radiance is, I'm just like, I want to warn them, okay, don't go into the second one expecting it to be like the first one, because it's very different.
How many books have you read that do have content warning? The books of this theme.
Content warning?
Yeah. Because that's finally becoming a thing. Yeah.
It's hard to say. I've read such an insane amount, so since 2021, because I read a bunch when I was like a teenager, and then I just got to a point where I stopped reading books for fun, and part of it was maybe because I had to read books for high school that weren't as enjoyable. Also, I kind of had some like mental health stuff and was burnt out and everything, and so I mostly read fan fiction after that, because fan fiction, when you already, first of all, if you're on like Archive of Our Own, it's super, super easy through tags and stuff to basically pinpoint exactly what you want to read. Okay. And so because I was like burnt out, I really didn't have it in me to like get invested into like new worlds, new characters, I basically wanted to read something that I knew 100% I would enjoy, and so, I read fan fiction, just fan fiction for a long time. And then in 2021, I sort of learned about, like, first of all, Kindle, which allows you to, like, get books a lot cheaper than you would if you got them paperback or hardcover. And
Material.
Sorry?
Material.
Yeah. And I also discovered sort of fantasy romances. I discovered Why Choose was, I think, a big part of what drew me back into reading, because I remember, like, even high school, I think that was a point where it became very popular to have, like, love triangles in books. And I have trouble sympathizing with people who are, like, main characters who are, like, angsty over love triangles, because to me the solution is so simple.
Here's the thing. Those aren't actual love triangles.
Some of them are, some of them aren't.
No. But
Twilight
here's the thing.
Was not a love triangle. I will die on that hill.
Yeah, because the real issue with the love triangle is you got person A, person B, person C. If it was, if it's just a love arrowhead, because you got person B and person C both in love with person A. If it was a true love triangle, it'd be person A in love with person B in love with person C, and person C in love with person A.
I mean, I think my understanding is that a love triangle is supposed to be, like, one person who is in love with two people. But, yeah, there are definitely plenty where that didn't happen. For example, again, I will absolutely die on the hill that Twilight was not a love triangle, because Bella was in love with Edward. But
she didn't romantically love
Jacob.
Yeah. No,
on numerous occasions, Bella made it very clear that she thought of Jacob as a friend and even as a brother. He was the one who would not leave her alone. And it got to the point where he was, like, basically gaslighting her about her emotions, like telling her, you don't understand how you really feel, and, you know, you don't. And so eventually there was a point where she did start to question it. But it's like, well, of course she would. Of course she would start to question it after being, like, gaslit for so long about it. Also, the 2 kisses, totally non-consensual on her part.
Yeah.
That happened.
Even the second one where she did ask him to kiss her, it was like a forced kiss, essentially, just to get him to stay. But it wasn't a kiss that she actually wanted.
Yeah. Did she ask? I didn't even think
she did asked. Say. The second time she did ask, but it wasn't to actually get him to, because she loved him in a romantic way. It was to get him to stay with her so that he wouldn't get killed, because she doesn't want him to die. Yeah,
that's how I remember it. Is that he basically came up to her in the middle of a battle and told her that if she didn't kiss him, then he would just go and, like, not try to survive. Like, that's how I remember.
Well. The way I remember it is he was being angsty because that was the moment he found out that Edward and Bella are engaged. Yeah. So it's been years since I read that book. And I read the first one more than I read the others. But no, Jacob, there was no real chemistry or romance. Hell, not even in the movies. It was I don't like saying this word. It was so cringe. But what was even worse was how the author resolved it by making their daughter his mate. I guess you want to call it. God, that was just disgusting. I'm sorry, but no. And the way I even tried to justify it when I was going through my Twilight phase was, that explains so much, because there's always a part of her that did love him, but it wasn't in a romantic way. It was the part of her that would later come on as her daughter. It's like, I look back on my past self and I'm like, why the fuck did you justify that?
Yeah, but I remember, so I'm pretty sure with Hunger Games, it was an actual love triangle, though, right? Because didn't she actually have feelings for Gale?
She felt like he understood her, but even he was very toxic.
but I guess my point is that I think that was
Yeah.
more of an actual love triangle because she actually did have romantic feelings for both.
Sort of. I mean, they both had feelings for her, but no, it would be more of a triangle if Gail had feelings for PETA.
That would be a polycule in the making. That's what that is.
I'm sure there's fan fiction about it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there is. Like, I in my fan fiction days, that's when I was like I'm just in general super adventurous. I've read an insane variety of different things. And so
how insane? How insane, because today we're talking about how far people can take it with their writing.
Yeah, I mean, Omegaverse is pretty tame for me. I've learned a lot about different kinks. Like, I've learned a lot of different kinks, including some kind of messier kinks, which I'm not as in. Yeah, that was
to each their own.
I tried it.
We do not kink shame here. We do not kink shame.
Yeah, but no, I tried it once and I was like, not for me. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, so I in fanfiction was my first major experience with actual, more than just two people in a relationship. Stuckoni, which is Steve, Bucky, and Tony Stark.
Okay, can I tell you one of my first introductions, or not even introduction, a hint of just how weird fanfiction can get?
Okay.
Do you remember that episode of Supernatural where they find out there's a book series based on them?
I've only watched like the first 3 episodes of Supernatural.
Okay, well, spoiler alert. They find that there's a fanfiction website of the books that are based on their adventures, and there's a whole scene where they're like, what's a slash fan? As in Dean/Sam together. They do know that we're brothers, right?
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah, in the Avengers, in the Marvel, it was Thor and Loki too, were paired together.
They're technically not biologically related.
Yeah.
So, Loki's actually an ice giant, so I guess that also fits into monster smut. God.
But, so one thing I want to say, though, do you know the House of Night series?
That sounds familiar. I haven't read it yet, but is that a vampire series?
Yes, actually, yes. So it's kind of like a Vampire Academy series. Like, it's this girl who finds out she's a vampire, and she gets taken to like this school where they, I guess, teach vampires how to be vampires. I guess.
Wait, whoa, back out. How does she not know that she's a vampire? Is she human at first, or does she not have that blood craving? How do you not know that you're a vampire?
I last read this when I was a teenager. So
okay, fair.
It's so hard to remember. The big thing that I remember, so I didn't finish the series, and one of the big things. So back in high school was when I was big on like questioning things, especially like social norms. I thought a lot about like, why do we do the things that we do? Why do we act the things?
As you should.
Yeah. And because also it's very important to me to actually have like a logical explanation. So for me, like the whole, we just do it this way because that's the way we've always done it, is not good enough for me. And so even in high school, like I really started that's when I started questioning the whole monogamy as the default sort of, thing, which that's this whole other conversation. I could go into depth on why exactly that doesn't make sense to me, but basically, so yeah, that's why I started like getting frustrated with love triangles because, yeah, again, I just have trouble like sympathizing with the angst when I'm like, okay, there's a very simple solution here. Like, just involve some communication.
Communication? We don't have that. What is that?
And so when I read this this House of Night series, there's a point where she has essentially like relationships with 3 different guys. And initially there is, but it's like right when it's developing, they talk about it, and she basically says like, "Look, I'm not ready to make a choice," and so they ultimately decide to just all have relationships with her. And I remember reading this and being like, "Oh my god, are they actually going to like depict a polyamorous, polyamorous dynamic in like a mainstream book series?" But then what happened is, so of the 3 guys, one of them ended up being a bad guy, one of them ended up dying to save her life, and so she was left with one, and it's like, oh, lovely, so you brought it back to monogamy.
Oh, and let me guess, he wasn't the best option.
If I remember correctly, he was, I mean, I liked him. I had sort of a soft spot for the guy who sacrificed himself. And you know what's funny, actually? When all 3 of them were with her, and I was sort of like, okay, are they actually going to be brave enough to do a polyamorous depiction? Because obviously, it's not mainstream. They'd have to be pretty brave to put that into a mainstream book. I remember even thinking to myself that this person who I had kind of a soft spot for, I was like, the only way I would accept him not being with her in the end is if he if he sacrificed himself.
Oh god!
And then it ended up happening, and I was like, frig, I guess I have to deal with it. I have to.
That was a friggin' foreshadowing!
Yeah, I was like, fine, you got me there.
Oh, wow. Alright, let's bring this back to Monster, or either Monster or fanfic. What is the raunchiest you've ever read?
So here's the thing. I don't know that I can remember the raunchiest, but I know that there are ones that I was like super, super shocked because I went into it expecting it to just be raunchy and then came out being like, oh my god, this was a beautiful love story. And already, so with books, I would say Morning Glory Milking Farm is that one for me. Went into it, for the Minotaur smut, came out of it like, damn, this is a beautiful love story. With fanfiction, it was tentacles. I went into it, because I was curious about tentacles, as we are. Don't lie.
Do you ever play Call of Cthulhu?
No, I haven't, actually.
Girl, that's right up your alley.
I definitely, if Cthulhu is meant to be the enemy, I would be the wrong person, because I would, monster romances have rotted my brain in that I no longer find monsters like immediately scary. Like I'd probably be playing a video game or a game, and like someone who's supposed to be a clear bad guy because they're a monster, I'd be like, awesome. I want to get to know them.
Okay, well, hold on. Reality check here. We see all this stuff in fiction. We're in a safe place in fiction, but in reality, we'd be running for the hills.
Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, it's rotted my brain. I don't know if I still have that, like, appropriate reaction, instinct of, like, running away from someone. Anyway, but yeah, no, the fan fiction I'm thinking about, and it's actually Stickoni as well. But yeah, it's tentacles. I went into it for the tentacles. When it came out of it, like, having read probably the most heartwarming fan fiction I've ever read in my life. Like,
Oh.
yeah.
I still have yet to see that, but the one that admittedly has piqued my interest for nostalgia purposes. You've seen that Shrek fanfic one on TikTok? The something in my swamp.
Yeah.
Get in my swamp.
Yeah. I've been
I guess that's where a lot of it started for some people, because Shrek is a cross-species monster love story. Yeah, just in general. But then again, she was also a monster too, so I guess that kind of discredits it? Because she was half human, then turned into a monster. Does that discredit it, or does that feed into it?
It definitely makes it a very unique story on its own.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. We're forgetting the most essential love story in that whole thing. Donkey and Dragon.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Talk about cross species.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my tale. That's my personal tale.
But you know what's funny too? Have you seen the TikToks where they'll play the scene of Beast turning into the prince, right? And then they'll cut to someone being like, "Oh, he's ugly now."
Oh yeah.
And the amount of people admitting that they found Beast hotter when he was in a beast form than when he was an adult, or when he was a prince. Of course, Disney is also the reason for all of that, because Kovu.
Yeah, he was a sassy little bitch. We loved him.
Spirit from Stallion of the Cimarron.
Oh God. Okay, no, that was my movie when I was a kid. I loved that. Bryan Adams. I used to play that album consistently, annoying everyone. I used to drive to school, or I didn't drive, but my dad drove us to school. I had some friends, and I would annoy the shit out of them by playing that album on repeat. None of them got to pick the music.
Oh, I adored that music as well. But oh my! So again, have you seen the TikTok trend where people are like, "What's your craziest hear me out?" Which a hear me out is like, this person's attractive, and someone was commenting, someone stitched it and was like, I don't want any of you to say that your hear me out is Spirit. That is a conventionally attractive horse. That's not a hear me out.
Do you know how many years it took me to realize Matt Damon was the voice for it?
Oh yeah, it took me a while to realize it as well. Yeah.
Then again, if you got the voice of Matt Damon, of course there's going to be some deep-rooted attraction. So,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh God,
and then,
I loved it.
Of course, there's Robin Hood.
The one with the fox?
Yeah.
Or Robin Hood Men in Tights, because Robin Hood Men in Tights.
No, I'm thinking Robin Hood again in the theme of Disney doing something to us with these
making
animals.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah. Conventionally attractive. Okay. You want to take it there? Rumpelstiltskin from freaking Once Upon a Time.
Okay.
That version. Yeah. You've seen Once Upon a Time, right?
No, I haven't seen it. Okay,
Brittany!
If you name TV shows and movies, odds are I will not have seen it because I do not watch.
Please, at least watch the first 3 seasons for me.
Oh,
please.
Maybe. I have commitment issues, so maybe one.
Okay, well, a little spoiler alert. Rumpelstiltskin is Beast in their version of Beauty and the Beast. Belle falls in love with Rumpelstiltskin.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And their introduction is actually freaking hilarious because he's saving her family and Gaston from a war with trolls. And he says, I will save your family, but Belle's got to come back to my house with me and be my servant. Yeah, so that's how, because magic always comes with a price. Mm-hmm. That's the line. And the way that he says it though is I don't need I'm not looking for love. I'm not looking for a wife. I need someone to take care of my rather large estate.
Nice.
Oh, that actor though, with his makeup and his accent, he's such a badass character, but that's like a good example of a little, even sort of a monster romance, because he's a creature, but he's a cursed creature, so he can be human. He has magical powers, but he chooses to be Rumpelstiltskin because that's where he's so greedy and so corrupted by the power that he's gained. So he chooses to stay a monster. Yeah. But Belle brings out the best in him. She brings out the human side of him.
Oh, wow.
And that scares the shit out of him.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It's an interesting love dynamic. There's a bit of an age difference between the actors, but it's a beautifully told story. I will say that. Yeah. So, until it becomes a soap opera.
Oh. Yeah.
Like, that's where I draw the line with a bunch of romances. If it becomes a back and forth, I love you, but we can never be together.
Yeah.
The only love story of those that I am fully invested in is Buffy and Angel from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
Because they have the most over-dramatic, I love you, but we cannot be together because I'm a vampire slayer and you're a vampire with a soul. And if they have sex, then he loses his soul because he experiences a moment of happiness. And the only reason he has a soul is because he was cursed by gypsies.
Yeah.
Yeah, to suffer the torment of all the pain that he's caused over his vampire years. Yeah.
So I've only seen, like, clips of Buffy to kind of enough that I know general, but I definitely Spike is I'm a fan of Spike.
Oh, he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Pardon my French. Yeah. But there's also, there's this one other character, Xander, and he always, whatever romance he has, he always gets stuck with a monster lady.
Okay.
There's even a woman that turns into that's actually a praying mantis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And, there's even a South American mummy. They always reveal what they truly are at the end, but every single time he gets invested in a woman, turns out she's a supernatural creature.
That's funny. One thing I love, so again, I saw sort of like clips of like when Willow goes dark, and I love how Xander is the one that brings her back, not because they're romantic, but because of like friendship. I love that so much.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, loving... There is a potential romance there because she starts out having a huge crush on him, but then, she has her own relationships on the side. They have a moment where they kind of explore their feelings for each other, but ironically, it's when they're both with someone else. So they kind of... Spoiler alert, they cheat, yeah. But essentially they do love each other, but they realize it's not actually a romantic or a real sexual love. It's just an intense... brotherly, sisterly love, but they're teenagers, so of course they're hormonal.
Yeah.
So,
I do love platonic and friendship,
yes,
or familial love, kind of in books and in TV and movies. Like books, I love romance, but TV and movies, I find that the platonic familial love is very
one of the most beautiful.
It's just very underrated. It's like those moments will move me in a TV movie way more than a romantic moment will. Like we were talking briefly about Star Trek. I saw the first movie, like of the original series, and that moment when Spock is in the med bay. And he clasps hands with Kirk, and he's like, "The robot didn't know friendship." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know friendship." Oh my god!
But okay, that just got me.
Yeah. Or also, we briefly talked about Shakespeare earlier too.
Yes,
I've always liked. Even though, like, I don't think of King Lear as a tragedy, because in my mind, the whole point of it is King Lear is trying to get forgiveness from Cordelia. And he does. He does. He gets forgiveness from Cordelia. And so I'm like, that's not a tragedy then. He got what he wanted.
Sure, but he dies.
Sure, but he still got what
That's the definition of a tragedy, when the main character old
people. Old people die. That's not something new. But okay, so bringing it back to
Shakespeare, we talked about like bestiality in Midsummer Night's Dream, because Bottom gets turned into a donkey man. Bottom. That's his name. Nick. His name is Nick Bottom.
Oh damn. Okay. I mean.
Yes. No, there's Shakespeare had a weird sense of humor.
Bottom a bottom.
Well, under Tatiana, he would be. Wait, Titania,
yeah.
Yeah, Queen of the Summer Fae.
Yeah, I actually read a series recently that Titania kind of made like a cameo appearance.
Where?
So it was a series. I think I even mentioned in the podcast in the Discord called the Incubus series, and it's so we start off following Jessica, who goes to this island that is kind of ruled over by this sorcerer named Azrael, and the whole thing is Jessica is going to be a courtier. Yes, courtier. Yeah. And which is essentially, it's kind of cool actually. It's really good like sex worker representation, because that's what she basically is. She's like an escort who lives on this island because Azrael helps keep peace between all the kingdoms, and so he's always hosting like lords and ladies and stuff. And basically while they're there, the courtiers, their job is to basically keep them in a good mood, entertain them. Although also a sort of, what we find out a little bit later too, a secondary purpose of that is that as a sorcerer, he works with, he has this one demon that he works with and is sort of like provides him magic, because very a la D&D, the sorcerers can't like produce their own magic. They have to be given the magic. They have to be able to use the magic through some kind of agreement. And so he works with this. I say works with, but the demon is technically his slave at the start of it. But he's an incubus named Mal, and so part of the whole courtier thing too is that like the sexual energy that's generated by that also helps feed his incubus. And it's quite interesting. It's so Jessica, she goes there, she kind of ends up striking up like a relationship with Mal. But initially Mal is sort of using her because turns out she's actually a succubus. She didn't know it.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah. And because there's like astral demons that come from the astral plane, and then earthborn demons that only come into their like demonhood at a certain age. Or in her case, actually her first sexual experience kind of initiated her becoming her sort of coming into her succubusness. But the fact that she was a succubus would allow him to potentially escape from being like Azrael's kind of slave.
Okay.
Anyway, a bunch of stuff happens. And they actually, Azrael's not the bad guy here, but and in fact they end up in like a threesome actually. But as an incubus and a succubus, it has to be like an open relationship because obviously they need to feed on sexual energy. So Like, they just go and, have sex with a bunch of other people. And Jessica ends up running into a girl who he claims her name is Anya. And they're friends who also have sex together. But then Anya, because Anya had sort of a grudge against Azrael, and we had actually learned about this, but we had thought it was Queen Mab, or Queen of the Fairies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so she's able to get close to Jessica, and then she is able to end up doing something to Azrael and Mal, and then we find out, Anya is short for Titania, which is another name for the Queen of the Fairies.
Oh.
And then Jessica, but this is kind of cool. So Jessica basically is able to save Azrael and Mal through the power of friendship. Because she's friends with Anya, so
there you go. Never underestimate the power of friendship.
Yes.
I think it gets such a bad rep, though, because it's so overused, or maybe there's like I think so, or at least when it comes to kids shows.
Maybe,
like
kids shows.
Yeah, with kids shows, it's all about power of friendship because you want kids to build that kind of camaraderie together. Mm-hmm. But maybe if it's a stage where either we grow out of it and we want the more romanticism, mm-hmm. the more romantic or even the sexual relationships, but I don't know, like, maybe it's the power of friendship when we mature out of it. We still believe in the power of friendship, but maybe it's... I think I lost my train of thought when I was going there.
I do find that friendship is very overrated, or underrated. It's underrated in
who needs friends?
Movies, TV shows.
Yes.
Which is why it affects me so much when they do have it. Because I find, it's not included that much. And unfortunately, I think there's sort of this hierarchy that's presented too of like romance is top and like platonic relationships mm-hmm. are below, mm-hmm. which, I don't really agree with. I think they're on the same level.
Mm. To each their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, back to the monster stuff.
Yeah.
Another kind of question, like, what is the weirdest thing you've ever read in terms of that? Or, like, what is the weirdest monster or non-human species that you've seen connected to a romantic story? Because we've crossed off aliens, we've crossed off half-donkey men, minotaurs,
gargoyles,
mm-hmm.
Trying to read. So I DNF'd a book that was, it's called Audited by the Anubis.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, but I DNF'd it after like 25 pages because, it had a major grammatical error continuously.
God.
In that, whenever they had dialogue where it was longer than like a few words, they would mm-hmm. have, within the quotation marks, there would be paragraph breaks. Like, what?
Oh, okay.
You don't put paragraph breaks in dialogue.
I've seen a couple of those in some of the books I've read,
really?
But not in ages. Yeah.
Yeah, that was so weird. But that wasn't even the worst. That wasn't the thing that, like, clinched it for me. The thing mm-hmm. that clinched it... So it was a dual POV. And, generally, when you have a dual POV point of view, the ideal thing is that if you have chapter 1 from one character one's perspective, and then chapter mm-hmm. 2 is from character 2's perspective, the mm-hmm. ideal is that chapter 2 should ultimately pick up in terms of the chronology of events.
Chronological order?
Yeah, from the end of chapter 1. Like, it's generally agreed upon that you shouldn't rehash like the same events from just a different perspective, because it kind of slows down the momentum of the story and stuff. So first off, that's what this book did. They had person one's perspective, and then they had person two's perspective that included some of the same events in person one's perspective. But then they didn't even get the representation of what happened the same. So, for instance, you'd have a conversation that's, say, 4 lines, right? And the line 1, 3, and 4 would be the same. And so obviously you're like, okay, this is the same conversation that we read in the first chapter. But then the second line would be completely different. So it was like, yeah, the each character's depiction of like what actually happened was different. So
it's not even just like a different point of view thing. It's like they actually changed the event.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so, which had to be an error. I was like, this has to be an error of
yeah.
And maybe that's a good example, a second example of why you just shouldn't rehash events in multiple point of views, because it opens you up to this sort of mistake.
You should read Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
If you haven't yet. That she bounces between character POVs throughout the entire series.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read definitely multiple POVs, like a lot of multiple POV books. But, yeah, so yeah, I DNF'd that one, but, you know, certainly it was like, the idea was that there was like a species of creature that was like an Anubis, which obviously is the god of the underworld. Or, no, not the god.
Egyptian mythology.
But Osiris is the god of the underworld. Anubis is like, I believe, the one who measures your soul. Anubis.
Well, hold on. When in doubt, Google it out.
The one that like judges your soul, I think, before you go to the afterlife.
Anubis, the god of funerary rites, protector of graves, and guide to the underworld.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So that was definitely interesting. That it was sort of taking this like god, but then like presenting it as if it was kind of a species of creature type thing.
Which begs the question: did that author really do their research?
Okay.
Yeah, because some authors, they'll just like, you can tell sometimes that some authors will do thorough research, and then they'll just take something that they like glanced over and then made shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other. Again, I've like since 2021, I've read like so many books that I'm trying to remember which one's the weirdest. I'm trying to remember if I actually read. I've seen plenty of like Kraken related ones, but I don't know if I've actually read
Tentacles
one. Yeah, I know. I read one with a basilisk.
Oh.
Yeah. But
now I just got Chamber of Now I just got the basilisk from Chamber of Secrets stuck in my head.
Well, I mean, I should say like a basilisk shifter, basically. So they have like a human.
Oh, like Jafar.
kind of. Yeah. That was actually in a Why Choose book where the main character ended up having a basilisk shifter, a dragon, a fox shifter, a vampire, a werewolf. I believe those are all of them.
There you go.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, that's... other than that, yeah, pretty standard. I've seen a lot of weird ones, like... I'm actually part of a Facebook group that's like a monster romance kind of recommendation group. And so every so often someone will ask, like, what are the weirdest ones you've read? And, you know, some of these titles are crazy or so funny. Like, there are definitely authors that like
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of a bit for them, like to think of the most outlandish possible
A challenge.
love interest, and you know, it's sort of, I think it's probably written like very tongue in cheek kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's one called Conquered by Clippy. Clippy being the like paperclip assistant for Microsoft Word.
No!
Yeah.
Oh god, no! I am suppressing the puns right now. I'm turning off my pun button.
But really, Conquered by Clippy, though, is an amazing title. There's a one called Unhinged, which apparently is like there's a door involved.
Oh yeah, the door from Alice in Wonderland.
What? From Alice in
Like the door from Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, the little doorknob that talks, remember?
No, I don't remember. I don't know. It's probably been a long time since I've like seen that.
Like the original Disney Alice in Wonderland.
Okay,
Yeah, remember the doorknob that talks?
Okay.
I'm knocked.
Oh, the doorknob. Oh, doorknob.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This is apparently a natural door. Yeah, there's one about balloon animals. There's, let's see. There's some wild ones. Yeah. But
okay.
On the topic of Alice in Wonderland, there's a trilogy that one of my favorite trilogies. Again, it's Why Choose. It's an Alice in Wonderland retelling kind of.
Okay.
By Eva Chase. It's called the Looking Glass Curse trilogy.
Ooh.
And what's interesting is since reading that, like anytime anyone mentions the Mad Hatter, the representation from that book is like the person I think of, and his name was Hatter. So the three guys are Hatter, Chess, short for Cheshire, and Theo, who's also known as the White Knight.
Okay.
Okay,
first, I'm going to insert here. Have you ever seen that sci-fi show of Alice in Wonderland? The one where the Wonderland is a casino?
No.
And the Queen of Hearts is... Okay, it's actually really... it's not... Well, actually, there is a romance between Alice and Jack, the Prince of Hearts, and Hatter. Okay. And I love the Hatter in this one. He's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But, so Alice is in our real world. And she's dating this guy, Jack. He gives her a family heirloom ring, and she's like, okay, this is moving a little too fast. But she finds him, she sees him get kidnapped, and she gets led by a guy who's like the White Rabbit through a looking glass. She falls through it into the hole, and then she lands in Wonderland, and Wonderland is built up like this really weird alternative universe where the Queen of Hearts is running a casino, and they're capturing people from the real world and draining them of their emotions.
Wow.
Because they can't feel real human emotions in the way, or maybe the Queen is just a sociopath, so she just she's psychotic.
Yeah.
But it's great because she wants to feel human emotions like happiness, desire, ecstasy, and all that. Mm-hmm. And the Hatter runs the tea shop where he sells the emotions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but Alice has this special ring, which is like the key to the Looking Glass portal. Mm-hmm. So she goes on a journey to try to find her boyfriend, Jack, and it turns out he's the Queen's son. And she goes on this whole journey of like trying to defeat the Queen and whatnot, and it's really well done. It's only a 2-episode miniseries. Mm-hmm. But it's fantastic to watch.
2 episodes, interesting.
Only 2, yeah.
I might actually
maybe 2.
Watch it.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. You can find it.
It's like the only show that I've watched fully is like BBC's Sherlock, because it's only like 3 episodes a season. So I'm like,
love Sherlock.
My commitment issues are able to handle it. Which, oh my god, I think I mentioned in the Discord, I'm currently reading, also by Eva Chase, a series called Moriarty's Men, where
Ooh.
Gemma Moriarty is. She goes through a bunch of adventures with her harem of men, or eventually. I mean, it's not like it takes a while to generate, but she eventually ends up with Sebastian Moran, Sherlock Holmes, John Watson, and Garrett Lestrade. And then there's also some stuff between John Watson and Sherlock Holmes.
Of course there is.
Yeah, of course there is.
It wouldn't be any kind of retelling of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson if there wasn't a romance between them.
Yeah. But it's also nice because, you know, it's also good, like, poly representation to have, like, a polycule where it's not just one person with, like, relationships with each of multiple partners. It's if those partners also have relationships with each other, it's like refreshing. It's refreshing to read that when, like, most of the time why choose is just like one person with individual relationships with multiple people.
There you go. All right, we're gonna stop the episode here, but thank you, Brittany, so much for joining me today. This was a really fun discussion. I hope to see you on the Discord. And to our dear audience, thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode almost as much as the book you are currently reading. Stay safe. Have a wonderful day. Until next time.